So I have a fairly clear idea here. We're going to contact law enforcement, child protective services, if reasonable suspicion arises. If in the end law enforcement or child protective services says, there's just not enough here to move forward. There's not enough for charges to be filed or brought, and so this is the end of the road. What happens then?
Very good question, Matt. And of course, that sometimes happens, but it happens for many reasons. But when it does happen, there are good reasons the church may still want to launch an investigation, albeit with fear and trembling. I mean, I mentioned one of those would be for employment reasons. If the person is an employee and has been alleged to be the perpetrator, you're going to have employment issues that you're going to want to know about for the future. So you want to talk about where such an investigation would be warranted and under what circumstances would they be warranted. You want to involve the key people in leadership to make that determination. If you're going to launch an investigation, you're going to have to make sure that that's something the board, perhaps even the senior pastor, agree with. And you're going to have to, as I mentioned, to probably go outside to get a law firm or somebody who understands how to do these investigations, because there are right ways to do the investigations and there are 100 wrong ways to do the investigations. It has been my experience. So
Right.
I really need somebody who will do that. And again, in most cases, the criminal authorities will take care of it. But in these rare instances, you need to think about, okay, how am I going to conduct this investigation and how am I going to do it right, so that both the alleged victim and their family, the alleged perpetrator and the family and the people in the church all feel like this has been handled professionally and objectively.
Yeah, those are great words. I think it really is about accountability before the Lord, and then accountability to others, whether it's your own congregation or the name of Christ in the broader community. And that's why carefully deciding whether to have an investigation done. Teresa and Rob both do them through their firms, and they're my go-to people for when I have a client that may decide that they want to do that for a variety of reasons. Here's a few, and I think, Rob, you introduced those. So maybe the allegations don't rise to criminal behavior, at least according to law enforcement, but the church says, well, we don't really want to have a certain person involved in children's ministry anymore. We think that there's maybe potential grooming, so it doesn't, there wasn't a finding of something specifically happening to a child that would warrant criminal prosecution, but it's very, very concerning. And certainly churches want to be on guard about some kind of behavior like that. But then you tell the person they're not allowed to be in the ministry or working anymore. So you want to probably have some sort of backdrop for that, some reason to do that. And then with accountability to say, well, we've disclosed on a need to know basis, whether that's a congregational message or, a message to the youth group. And again, I would recommend, along with Teresa and I think Rob, that's usually an oral thing, because emails, printed things have a way of getting in strange places. So keeping that more informal with a statement, maybe a carefully developed statement, but something that you would read out loud. And you might want to come circle back and say, this is what the outcome. We have a culture of caring at our church. This is not only what happened in this situation, which could be nothing more than that person is no longer there, but also thinking about, well, how better are we going to do church? We've told you there was something going on. We've addressed it fully. And what's more, here's the way we're going to really ramp up our children's protected activity, not as any mission of liability, but and the law has some certain guidelines about such things, because the public policy is to encourage doing better. And then another area where I get more involved with, especially if people are willing to go into a high quality investigation, is if the church wants to keep the alleged perpetrator in this position as a paid staff or as a volunteer even, basically to clear the air, to allow for reinstatement, to clear their name. You have to be very careful about potential negligent retention issues. In other words, if something were to happen in the future, could the church leaders be liable for allowing this person to stay? So for that reason, you want to seek very high quality and independent investigators, people who have no connection with the church, and be prepared to spend a lot of money. And my last little quick anecdote was I had a client that just came to me at the very tail end and said something bad happened. There were allegations. We've thoroughly investigated it. And now we're concerned that this might be subject to disclosure. So do we have attorney-client privilege at the very end? And the answer was, unfortunately, you should have had an attorney at the very beginning, because then the attorney-client privilege would cloak. And we can, there's a lot of details with that, but it is a reason to treat this just with the utmost seriousness going into this, whether it looks like it's serious at the beginning or not, just to be very, very attentive and to think, the adage, start with the end in mind. If the end in mind is we'd like to keep this person on staff, or, we don't think that this is credible, just follow through within the next correct steps to get to where you want to be. We want to be a church that's highly respected and people value our reputation and our children feel safe here. Then understand that that has implications for what you do with that allegation.